I don't know the exact moment I realized I wasn't wanted. Maybe it was a slow realization, like watching the water in a bathtub drain, slowly and silently, until there's nothing left but cold porcelain. But if I had to pick a moment, I'd say it was my fifth birthday. I remember waking up excited. I didn't expect a party or gifts or even a cake, just maybe a little attention, a smile, a happy birthday, something. Instead, I walked into the kitchen to find my mom making cupcakes, chocolate with sprinkles. I stood there beaming. I thought maybe they were for me. She glanced over and said,
Don't touch those, they're for your brother's birthday.
my brother, whose birthday was 2 days after mine, his first birthday. I asked if we could share the celebration, just put one candle for me, one for him. She smiled like she pitied me and said,
You're old enough to understand. His birthday is a bigger deal.
that was the moment something inside me cracked. When she married my stepfather, things got worse. I became the ghost in the house. He never called me by my name, just the kid. He didn't yell at me. He didn't hit me. But the silence was worse. It was like I didn't exist. They had two kids together, my half-siblings, perfect little bundles of joy who got bedtime stories, toys, hugs, and warm pancakes on Sundays. Me? I got leftovers, both food and attention. They'd go out as a family, picnics, shopping, holidays, and I'd be told to stay with Grandma. Every time I asked why, my mom would say,
You just slow us down. We'll make it up to you next time.
next time never came. I stopped asking. At school, when we were told to draw pictures of our family, I'd draw everyone but myself. The teachers thought it was creative. I thought it was accurate. I learned how to survive quietly. I made my own sandwiches. I figured out how to wash my clothes so they didn't yell about the smell. I celebrated my own birthdays, sometimes with a candle stuck in a slice of bread. I got good at pretending I didn't care. But I did. God, I did. One night, my little brother spilled juice on the living room carpet. It soaked into the fibers, spreading like a stain across a clean lie. He ran off crying, and I cleaned it up, scrubbed for half an hour until my fingers were raw. But they still found out. Not that the juice spilled, but that I didn't tell them. I got grounded for lying by omission. They took away my books, the only things that made me feel safe. And when I cried, my stepfather said,
Stop acting like a victim. You should be grateful you're even here.
that's when I stopped crying. I stopped talking too. By the time I was 13, I had mastered the art of disappearing while standing in plain sight. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't loud. I wasn't even particularly sad looking. I was just blank. And they liked me better that way. Looking back, it wasn't one moment that broke me. It was 1,000 tiny ones. 1,000 nights I spent staring at the ceiling, wondering what I'd done wrong. 1,000 mornings I walked past my mom without her even looking up from her phone. And the worst part? For a long time, I still loved them. I still hoped for something, anything. But by the time I hit 14, I stopped hoping. I started thinking, planning. Not for revenge, not yet, just for an exit. That was the year I walked out of the house with a backpack and didn't come back. No one chased me, no one called. And that silence, that confirmed everything. I moved in with my grandmother after I turned 14. She didn't ask many questions at first. Maybe she already knew. She just looked at the way I flinched when she raised her voice to call my name, or how I jumped when she closed the kitchen cabinets too hard. And instead of prying, she just hugged me. Not the kind of hug where someone pats your back and lets go in 2 seconds. The kind where you feel held, safe. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what to do with that kind of softness. I stood stiff as a board, arms at my side while she cried into my shoulder. She cried. I didn't. I'd used up all my tears long before then. Living with her was quiet. Not the kind of silence that feels like you're being ignored, but the kind that feels like peace. No yelling, no cold stares, no walking on eggshells. She made breakfast every morning. Nothing fancy, just eggs and toast. But she made it for me. She remembered my birthday. She asked how my day was. And when I said, fine, she didn't accept it. She waited. Eventually, I started talking again. Not a lot, but enough. I started breathing again too. But even then, I couldn't forget the years I spent at home. The other home, the one I no longer called mine. I still had to see them occasionally. Holidays, school events, family obligations. They'd smile for the pictures, shake hands with teachers, pretend like they cared. And then after the event, my mom would pull me aside just to say things like,
You really should be more grateful to your stepdad. He didn't have to raise you, you know?
or
Try not to act like a victim. It's exhausting.
victim. That was the word they loved to use when I spoke up. Meanwhile, my half-siblings lived their perfect little lives. Sports, friends, sleepovers, expensive toys, and two parents who showed up for them every time. I never blamed the kids. They didn't know. To them, I was just the older brother who didn't come around much. Quiet, awkward, maybe a little angry. One time, my little sister tried to hug me during a Christmas party. I stepped back. Not because I didn't want to hug her, but because I didn't know how. And my mother gave me that look. The one that said,
See, you're the problem.
I went home early that night. Home was never just a place. It was a battlefield. And I had been retreating for years. But living with Grandma gave me time. Time to think, to process, to imagine a life where I wasn't constantly trying to earn love like it was some kind of currency. That's when the idea started forming. Not revenge, not yet, but something close. I wanted to become someone they'd have to acknowledge, someone they couldn't ignore, someone they'd regret ever discarding. I didn't want to make them suffer. I wanted them to see me. And the only way to do that was to disappear completely until the day I could return stronger, colder, and more successful than they ever expected. That became the plan, and I stuck to it. I never told my mother I was leaving. I didn't leave a note, didn't slam the door, didn't shout, "You'll regret this," like in some dramatic movie scene. I just walked out one morning with a backpack and a worn pair of sneakers. It was raining. I remember that because my socks were soaked halfway through the walk to my grandmother's house, and I didn't even care. I knocked once. She opened the door like she'd been waiting. She didn't ask why I was there. She just said,
Come in, dry off.
and that was it. No judgment, no questions, just space to breathe. Life didn't magically become easy. I had to fight for every inch of ground I stood on. I had no connections, no special talent, no secret inheritance. But I had one thing they never counted on. I remembered everything, every dismissal, every insult, every time they made me feel like I didn't belong. That memory, sharp, cold, and unshakable, became my motivation. I worked like a man possessed. School, part-time jobs, scholarships, anything to keep moving forward. I was terrified of standing still, because standing still meant remembering too much. At 17, I got a part-time gig at a mechanic shop. I cleaned toilets, organized inventory, replaced tires. Nobody cared about my past there, just whether I could keep up, and I did. More than that, I outworked everyone. At 18, I got a scholarship to a state college. At 20, I launched a freelance coding gig. By 23, I had a tiny but profitable real estate startup. I was building something real, something they couldn't touch. And the best part? My company got a contract to renovate homes in the same neighborhood I grew up in. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drove past their house once. It still looked the same. Gray shutters, overgrown hedges, faded paint and empty warmth. I didn't stop. I just looked once and kept driving. People think revenge has to be loud, explosive, violent. Mine was none of those things. It started with a card, no name, no return address, just a bouquet of flowers with a simple note. Do you remember the son you left behind? That was it. 2 weeks later, I hosted a charity event for underprivileged teens, mentorship, career training, college funds, public, of course, the kind that made headlines. I was on the event poster, and so was the location, a private event space just 10 minutes from their house. They showed up. Mom had done her hair like she used to in old pictures. Stepdad wore a forced smile. My siblings hovered nearby, awkward and unsure. They didn't recognize me at first. Not fully. It had been over a decade. I was taller, leaner, sharper. But when our eyes met, My mother's face dropped, like she'd seen a ghost. Or worse, guilt that finally took form. She walked toward me slowly.
Jake?
She said, like she wasn't sure. I nodded once, didn't smile. She reached for a hug. I didn't move. She said things like,
I've thought about you every day. I know we made mistakes. We were young, we were trying our best. Can we talk?
I listened, really listened. And when she was done, I said, I'm not here for closure. I already gave it to myself. I don't hate you. I just don't need you anymore. Her eyes welled up. Stepdads stayed silent. I looked at them, two people who thought I'd stayed broken. And I said, you didn't break me. You just taught me who not to become. Then I turned and walked away. People asked me if I felt better afterward. The truth? It wasn't like a movie. There was no cheering, no dramatic music, just peace. I didn't want to destroy them. I didn't want to scream. I just wanted them to know they never controlled the ending of my story, that they lost something and I didn't, because I had rebuilt myself from scratch, and I liked the version of me they never met. Revenge doesn't always look like burning someone down. Sometimes it's just refusing to carry their weight anymore and walking away from the fire they built. I never reached out to them again. They tried once or twice, emails, messages, birthday wishes, but I never replied. I didn't need to. They said everything they needed to say by how they treated me back then. I found family in unexpected places, friends, mentors, people who saw value in me without needing to crush me first. So no, I didn't get the apology I once begged for. I got something better, a life they don't get to be part of. But funny thing is, just a few months ago, my mother tried to connect again, not to make amends, but because they needed something. They came back, but not for me. It started with an email, just a subject line.
We'd like to talk.
No greeting, no signature, just those 5 words. I stared at it for a while, thinking maybe it was spam, maybe some scammy phishing attempt. But the email address was real. My mother's name, her old domain. I didn't reply. 3 days later, a message came through my company's contact form. Urgent, personal request for Jake, family matter. Still no details. The next morning, a letter arrived at my office. Handwritten, shaky cursive. It was from her.
I know I have no right to ask. I know what we did, but we need your help, please. It's not for me. It's for your brother.
My half-brother. The golden child. The one who had Christmas presents stacked taller than me while I sat in the corner with socks. I almost tossed the letter in the trash, but something in me paused. Why now? I did some digging. Turns out my brother had made some bad decisions. A failed crypto investment. Credit cards maxed out in my stepfather's name. Eviction notice on his apartment. The kicker, they wanted me to co-sign on a new lease because apparently I turned out responsible. I didn't respond to the letter. Instead, I called my lawyer. He laughed and said,
You want to write a polite no or a legally bulletproof no?
I chose both. We sent a formal letter back. I am not interested in participating in any personal financial arrangement involving your family. I wish you well. Signed, done. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. 3 weeks later, I walked into a coffee shop to meet a new potential investor. And guess who was sitting at the corner table, waiting? My mother. She stood when she saw me.
Jake.
She said. Soft, tired, too familiar. I didn't sit. I didn't speak. She said, "Oh."
Please just hear me out.
I gave her 60 seconds. That's all. She started talking fast.
He's not like you. He didn't have your drive. He made mistakes, but he's a good kid. We're just trying to keep him afloat. This isn't about the past. It's about helping someone who needs a second chance.
I stared at her. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She looked practiced, like she'd rehearsed this in front of the mirror. When her time was up, I said only this. You taught me everything I know about survival. He'll figure it out. She blinked. The mask cracked, just a little. Then I turned and walked out. That night, I got another letter. Not from her, from my brother.
I don't remember a time you were ever kind to me, but I didn't think you'd let me drown. I thought we were family.
I didn't write back, because the truth is, we weren't family. We just happened to live under the same roof. Everyone thinks revenge is about burning bridges, but for me, it's about building a life so solid, so peaceful, that when the people who tried to bury you come back looking for a lifeline, you don't even think about reaching. Because you already gave them everything they deserved the day you stopped chasing their approval. I still walk by their house sometimes. It's aging, cracked paint. One of the shutters hangs loose. I don't feel anything anymore when I look at it. Not rage, not grief, just stillness. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real ending they never saw coming. I didn't hear from any of them for almost a year. Not my mother, not my stepfather, not my siblings. It was peaceful, quiet in the way a healed scar doesn't throb anymore. I got engaged. My company opened a second office. I stopped thinking about the past altogether. Until one morning, a certified envelope showed up on my desk, stamped with a law firm's seal, return address, the town I never went back to. Inside, a formal letter. You are listed as a beneficiary in the estate of Robert Langley. You are required to appear for a reading of the will. Robert Langley, my stepfather. I stared at the letter for a long time, not because I was sad, but because the last conversation I had with that man was him pretending I didn't exist while standing 3 feet away. I didn't respond right away. Didn't plan to go, either. But my fiancé said something that stuck with me.
Sometimes closure isn't a door that opens. It's one you walk past and never look at again.
So I decided to walk in, just to see what they thought they could get from me now. The day of the will reading, I wore black. Not for mourning, but for protection, like armor. The office was small, cramped, filled with tension and old secrets. My mother was there, dressed head to toe in gray, tears in her eyes that I wasn't sure were real. My half-siblings looked uncomfortable. Not sad, just awkward, like they didn't know how to greet the ghost in the room. I didn't say a word. The lawyer, a soft-voiced man with trembling hands, read the will aloud. It was mostly standard. Money to my mother, property divided among the kids. Some vague debts mentioned. And then,
To Jake, I know we never saw eye to eye, but I hope you can use this to do some good in the world.
a pause. The room went still. He continued.
I leave him the lake house and the enclosed letters unopened.
Wait, what? The lake house. The place they used to vacation without me. The place I was never invited to, not once, not even after I moved out. They gave me the one place that symbolized my exclusion. And letters? From him? I almost laughed. Later in the hallway, my mother stopped me. She looked tired, older than I remembered. She said,
He wanted to make it right. He didn't know how.
I stared at her for a second. Did you know about this? She looked down.
He wrote the letters years ago. I didn't read them.
She hesitated.
I told him you wouldn't care.
She said it like it was supposed to be a defense. I walked away. The lake house was exactly as I imagined. Rustic, quiet, smelled like cedar and regret. I sat on the porch and opened the first letter. Inside,
I don't know how to apologize. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I just want you to know. I knew I failed you.
each letter was a little more honest, a little more broken. Like a man slowly realizing that being feared isn't the same as being respected. He didn't beg for forgiveness, but he didn't excuse himself either. That I didn't expect. In the last letter, he said,
I wanted to leave you something that we always denied you, a place to belong.
I sat with that for a long time, not angry, not emotional, just tired. The next day, I signed the deed transfer papers and handed the lake house title to a local nonprofit that provides housing for displaced teens. I never even spent a night there because I didn't need a place from them anymore. I had built my own life, brick by brick, pain by pain. And finally, peacefully, I closed the last chapter. Or so I thought, because 2 weeks later, my mother called me, and this time, she wasn't asking, she was demanding. It started with a voicemail.
I don't know what you think you're doing, Jake, but that lake house was meant for the family, not to be given away like some charity stunt.
Click. That was my mother's voice. Cold, controlled, clipped between her teeth like she'd been practicing it for days. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because 3 days later, I got an email from her lawyer. Subject, recontested asset, Langley Estate, Lake House transfer. They were challenging the deed, claiming emotional distress, alleging I manipulated an elderly man in decline to sign over the property. I read the whole thing twice, then once more, just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't. They were trying to erase his final decision. Erase the fact that he chose to leave something for me. Here's the part they didn't expect. I kept every letter, every envelope, every document from the will reading. I even had video footage of the lawyer reading it out loud. Not because I thought I'd need it, but because you learn growing up in a house like that nothing you say is believed unless you prove it. So I always kept receipts. My lawyer was calm when I called, almost amused. He said,
They want to play games? Good. We like games.
we drafted a response that was clinical, airtight, and about as warm as a steel blade. Included scanned copies of the will, verified letters, voice memos, a sworn statement from the estate lawyer, and a final paragraph that said, any continued attempt to interfere with my client's legal rights will be treated as harassment and escalated accordingly. They backed down, but not without trying one last time to twist the knife. My mother sent me a handwritten note. No, dear Jake, just straight into it. You've proven your point. You've always thought you were better than us. I hope the world you've built keeps you warm when you're old and alone. I didn't even finish reading it. I dropped it in the fireplace and watched it burn. Because that's all it ever was. Ash pretending to be paper. A week later, I got an anonymous donation receipt in the mail. The nonprofit that took over the lake house, they named it the Second Chance Cabin. They were using it to house teen runaways, kids who had nowhere else to go. Kids like I used to be. I visited once, quietly. Didn't tell them who I was. I just stood by the lake and listened to the laughter echoing across the water. And for the first time in years, I smiled. I haven't spoken to my mother since. I don't check her emails. I don't read her letters. Because what could she possibly say that she hasn't already screamed in silence for years? Sometimes the loudest apology is no longer being needed. But even now, in the quiet moments, I still wonder, was she always like this? Or did she become this way to survive someone else's story? It doesn't really matter, because this chapter is mine. It had been 2 years since I walked away from the last thread connecting me to them. 2 years since the lake house, since the lawsuit, since the last tear-stained envelope showed up in my mailbox. I thought that was the end. Turns out it was just the intermission. I found out by accident. A friend sent me a message on LinkedIn.
Hey man, just saw your brother's Tedx talk. Weird how he skipped over your name. Thought you might want to know.
I stared at the message for a long time. My brother? The golden child. The one who maxed out credit cards and begged me to co-sign on his second lease. The one who sent me a letter that basically said,
I don't like you, but I thought you'd still save me.
apparently he'd reinvented himself. Speaker, mental health advocate, child of a fractured home who overcame adversity. I clicked the link. There he was, hair slicked back, polished suit, a microphone clipped to his collar. He looked confident, poised, practiced. He told the audience about growing up in a broken home, about his absent older brother who ran away and left him behind, about how he had to become the man of the house and how his parents did their best. I paused the video. I wasn't even angry yet. I was just stunned. He'd rewritten the entire story, painted himself as the survivor, my mother as the misunderstood matriarch, my stepfather as firm but fair. Me? I was the ghost, the scapegoat, the selfish one who left, not the one who was forced out, not the one who watched birthdays pass without a single word, not the one who scrubbed juice out of the carpet in silence and got punished for not speaking up. For the first time in years, I felt heat rise in my chest, not because he succeeded, but because he used my silence to shape his success. He counted on me staying quiet. The thing is, I still had the letters. From my stepfather, from my mother. I had photos, receipts, a paper trail of everything. But I also had something else, a choice. I could expose him. I could send those documents to the same organization that hosted his talk. I could write my own essay, tell my story, uncut, unpolished, unflattering. I could burn his carefully curated reputation to the ground. But I didn't. Not immediately, because what I really wanted was for him to know I saw, to know I was watching, and to give him the chance to come clean before I lit the match. I sent him a simple message. Saw your talk, interesting story. I've got the original version in case you ever want to tell the truth. No reply. But 2 days later, the video disappeared from YouTube. Tedx pulled it quietly. No statement, no repost. I waited. Another week passed. Then came the email.
I didn't think you'd care. You always stayed out of it. I just wanted people to see me, not you. Me. You already have everything. I needed something.
There it was. Not an apology, not remorse, just entitlement dressed up as grief. I wrote back once. You wanted a story. I lived one. Don't borrow pain you didn't earn. It fits like a stolen suit. I haven't heard from him since. But I did check his profile again a month later. It was blank. No speaking gigs, no foundation, no story. Just silence. The same silence I grew up with. Only this time it wasn't mine. It started with a knock, not an email, not a voicemail, an actual knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday, the kind of time people leave you alone. When I opened the door, there was a woman standing there, mid-30s, leather notebook under one arm, press badge hanging around her neck.
Jake Langley? My name is Melissa Cho. I'm a journalist.
My first instinct was to close the door. Instead, I just said, wrong house. But she didn't leave. She slipped a business card into my mailbox and said,
I'm doing a piece on family legacy and public image. I came across your brother's Tedx profile and the retraction. I'd love to talk to you.
Then she walked away. No pressure, no threats. Just that, an open door I didn't ask for. I ignored her for a week, then 2. But curiosity is a funny thing. I looked her up. She was legit, investigative journalist, award-winning, had done exposés on cult survivors, broken open school corruption scandals, and quietly, she'd already spoken to people in my hometown, teachers, old neighbors, even the nonprofit that owned the lake house now. Her work wasn't exploitative. It was surgical, respectful, but unflinching. She wasn't here to gossip. She was here to tell the truth. I met her at a small cafe, neutral ground. We talked for 2 hours. She asked questions no one had ever asked me directly.
What did it feel like to grow up in the same house, but live in a different world? Do you remember the moment you stopped hoping they'd change? Why did you stay silent all this time?
And when I didn't answer, she didn't push. She just nodded and said something that stopped me cold.
Sometimes survivors become invisible by choice. But silence doesn't protect you, it just protects them.
That night, I went home and opened a folder I hadn't touched in years. Letters, photos, copies of text messages, a childhood drawing I made at age 8, with my family standing in front of our house, but me colored in gray, on the far edge of the paper. I sent her everything. The article came out 6 weeks later. It wasn't a hit piece. It wasn't revenge porn. It was quiet, careful, devastating, titled, The Son They Erased, The Cost of Family Myth-Making. She told the story honestly, my story. She quoted parts of the letters from my stepfather. She shared excerpts from court filings and public records. She interviewed the nonprofit who now ran the cabin once denied to me. She didn't name names. But everyone in my hometown knew exactly who it was about. And then something I didn't expect happened. People started reaching out. Not with judgment, not with pity, but with recognition. Strangers, old classmates, even one of my childhood teachers.
I always thought something was off. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. Thank you for speaking out. It helped me understand my own story.
But the most surprising message came from someone else. My half-sister, the youngest one. The girl who used to try and hug me at Christmas, now an adult. Quiet. She changed her last name. She messaged me simply,
I read it. I believe you. I'm sorry I never asked. I'd like to talk, only if you want to.
That was the first time in years I cried. Not because I was sad, but because maybe, just maybe, silence wasn't safety anymore. Telling the truth, that was the real freedom. Her message sat in my inbox for 3 days. Short, simple, no fluff, no expectation.
I read it. I believe you. I'm sorry I never asked. I'd like to talk, only if you want to.
I must have reread it a dozen times. Not because I didn't understand, but because I didn't know what to do with it. This was the same girl who once tried to show me a crayon drawing she made of our family. The one who giggled during birthday parties I wasn't invited to. Who once offered me half of her gummy bear pack when no one else was looking. She didn't choose to be part of what happened to me, but she didn't stop it either. Then again, she was a kid too. I wrote back a one-liner, "Coffee next week?" She replied within minutes,
Name the time. I'll be there.
"We met at a bookstore cafe in the city, neutral ground, no eyes from the past, just two people trying to sort out what family even meant anymore." She looked different, not in the dramatic makeover way, just grown, tired around the eyes. Guarded but present. She hugged me when we met. I didn't flinch this time. We sat, we ordered, we didn't rush. And then she said it.
I think about you more than you know. I used to sneak into your room after you left, just to sit there. I don't know why. I asked Mom once where you went. She told me you got tired of us, like it was a choice you made out of boredom.
She paused.
I believed her for a long time, until I didn't.
She pulled out a folded paper from her purse. Old, faded, torn at the corner. It was a drawing. Crayons on construction paper. Stick figures in front of a lopsided house. 4 people, and a 5th figure in the corner. Drawn in gray.
This was you. I didn't understand back then, but I remembered it.
I didn't say anything for a long time. I just looked at the drawing. And for the first time in my life, someone from that house looked at me and saw me. Not what I became, not what I accomplished. Just me. She said,
I don't want anything from you. I don't want to fix the past. I just want you to know that I see it now, and I'm sorry.
I nodded. It wasn't a tearful reunion, no swelling background music, just quiet. And sometimes, quiet is enough. We stayed in touch after that, not siblings in the storybook sense, but 2 survivors of the same house learning how to rewrite their own endings. She told me later that our mother found out about the meeting, that she called her crying, said I was poison, said I was trying to divide what little family they had left. But this time, she didn't listen. She told me,
Mom raised us to believe that silence was safer, but you taught me that telling the truth doesn't make you cruel, it makes you free.
and just like that, a story that began with betrayal. I thought the story was over. Truly, no more messages, no more lawsuits, no more rewritten histories. I had spoken, the world heard, the family scattered. But closure has a funny way of showing up when you least expect it. It was a Saturday, cloudy, chilly enough for a jacket, but not for gloves. I was on the porch, reading. Peaceful. Then came the knock. Not frantic, not soft, measured. I opened the door, and it was her. My mother, older now, smaller somehow, face tighter, eyes hollow, a scarf wrapped around her neck like she was shielding herself from her own words. She didn't ask to come in. She just looked at me and said,
You win.
I didn't respond, didn't move, didn't blink. She continued,
You got your story. You told the world what we did. You made me the villain. And maybe I deserved it. Fine, I didn't think you'd hate us this much forever.
I studied her. Not with rage, not with sorrow, with distance, like a painting you've already stared at too long. Until all the color is gone, I said calmly, I don't hate you. She looked surprised. So I continued, you can't hate a shadow, you can only stop walking toward it. She didn't get it, But I didn't say it for her. I said it for me. She said one last thing before turning to leave.
You could have just told me how you felt.
I laughed, quiet, sad, not mocking. I did, every day, with my silence. You just chose not to hear it. And then, she was gone. No hug, no apology, no cinematic ending. Just the final knock, closed behind her. I walked back inside, made tea, sat by the window. The world didn't change. No lightning strike, no thunderclap. But something had shifted, not out there, inside. That night, I took out a notebook, wrote one final sentence. The boy they tried to erase learned how to write his own story. I closed the notebook, placed it on the shelf. Next to it, the drawing my sister gave me, framed now, 5 stick figures, and a gray one in the corner. Only this time, I'd added a 6th figure, colored in full, standing beside it. This is the end of my story. Not of pain, not of memory, but of needing anyone's permission to move forward. I don't want revenge anymore. I want peace. And this is what peace finally feels like. It's strange how peace doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes in the shape of an ordinary day. Now I wake up in a house filled with light. There are no slammed doors, no silence designed to punish. Just quiet mornings, strong coffee, and the knowledge that I am free. I mentor kids now. Teenagers who remind me of myself, closed off, misunderstood, underestimated. I don't fix them. I just listen. And sometimes that's all they needed, just like I did. I visit Grandma's grave once a year. I bring her yellow tulips. She liked them best. I sit beside her and talk about the life I've built. I tell her I finally understand the strength it took to raise me. And I thank her. My half-sister still calls. We talk about life, work, sometimes the past, but only in small doses. She's her own person now, and I'm proud of her. As for the rest, I let them fade, not out of hatred, but because they stopped being part of the story the day I learned how to hold the pen. Some people think revenge is justice. That pain deserves pain. But I've learned that the loudest revenge is joy, real joy, built on your own terms. They tried to break me by pretending I wasn't there. And now, I stand taller than they ever imagined. Not to spite them, but because I learned to grow in the shadows, and now I choose the sun.